Wait, why the fuck am I crying? That was the thought that hit me in the middle of a call with my editor, Kim, and not during anything dramatic. We weren't talking about trauma or feelings or anything heavy. We were talking about plotting, structure, story mechanics, the opening chapters of Murphy's Law of the Jungle, which, yes, I'll admit I've been struggling with a bit, but still, this was not a cry on a professional Zoom call type situation. I was frustrated, annoyed, and stuck. All normal baseline writer emotions at this point in the process. This was not an I should be having a meltdown kind of moment, and yet there I was, tears just quietly sliding down my face, like my body had made a unilateral decision and didn't bother to inform my brain of what was going on. I couldn't make them stop. Logic didn't help. Thinking to myself, get it together didn't help. Breathing didn't help. There were just tears for no clear reason. And they were wildly out of proportion to what was actually happening in the moment. So I did what I think most of us would do in that situation. I nodded, I stayed engaged to the best of my ability, and I contributed where I could. And I prayed she would not ask me if I was okay or what was going on or why I was crying. Because if she had, the honest answer would have been, I don't know what the fuck is happening right now, and I need it to stop, like immediately. And here's the thing, that moment didn't actually completely come out of nowhere. I've been struggling with this book for days or years, if we're being honest, because I've been playing with it and making different decisions about it and changing what happens in this story for over a decade now. Like longer than I've been married to my husband. I've been fucking around with this story and trying to figure out what it actually needs to be. So, like, not completely out of left field. Specifically, what I've been struggling with recently are the opening chapters. I've rewritten them, second guessed them, scrapped entire sections, rebuilt them. Nothing has been landing the way I want it to. And after a while, that kind of resistance really fucks with your head. The only thing I've managed to zero draft this entire week was the dialogue for the big fight or the black moment in the book. And I made myself cry while writing it. Like, actually cry. At the time, I brushed it off. I told myself, well, yeah, it's an emotional scene. Of course it hit hard. But looking back now, that should have been a red flag for me. Because when everything feels that intense, when even drafting feels like you're rubbing like coarse grit sandpaper against exposed nerves, that's usually not just about the work itself. That's about the state of the nervous system that's doing the work. And I'll continue with the honesty streak. I also haven't been happy with much of anything I've written lately, or at least since his Wicked Game. And instead of recognizing that as a signal, I internalized it. I told myself the book was just being difficult, that the opening was stubborn, that I needed to push harder, think smarter, work longer, just like get like a dog with a bone with it. But when I found myself crying on a plotting call, it finally clicked. This wasn't about the opening chapters. This wasn't about my editor. This wasn't even about the book itself. The book was just where everything finally spilled over. Because let's be honest, frustration, I can handle frustration. That's my home turf. But frustration plus uncontrollable crying with no clear emotional reason attached to it, that's not my personality. That's my nervous system waving a low red flag and going, hey, something's off. Please pay attention. And this is where the stakes actually come in. Because when your emotional regulation is compromised, everything feels heavier than it really is. Every decision feels urgent. Every setback feels personal, like the universe is saying, fuck you specifically for reasons we won't disclose. Every creative block feels like it's saying something definitive about your entire career and maybe makes you wonder, like, am I even supposed to be doing this? which, let's be honest, that thought is ludicrous. And that is a terrible place to be making decisions from. So let's talk about the ripple effects of all this because it hasn't just been emotional. It's messed with my plans, it's messed with my projects, it's messed with my January goals. And the honest truth is, I haven't made the progress I hoped I would. January was supposed to be a strong start for me. There was supposed to be momentum. I was supposed to be setting the tone for the year. Instead, I've been spinning my wheels, second guessing myself, and burning time on rewrites that just weren't working. I ended up cutting over 8,000 words. Let me just say that again. 8,000 words. I just threw in the fucking garbage. And listen, those weren't lazy words. I worked hard on them. I just had to admit they weren't hitting right. And that sucks no matter how long you've been writing. Like, that is a real kick in the pants. What I'm actually afraid of here, if I'm being honest, which is, I'm trying to be, uh, is backing myself into another last minute corner because I've done that before. Many, many times. I've done it twice recently with A Smile Full of Lies and His Wicked Game. Both times I pushed way too hard. I white knuckled deadlines, lived in a constant state of stress, and kept telling myself it was fine because the books were turning out good. It didn't matter how much sleep I was losing because the books were turning out good, and they did. My readers love them. I'm proud of them. But the process was brutal. And I really don't want to keep proving to myself that I can survive chaos like that if the cost to me is frying my nervous system every single time I do it. So here's the lie that I'm actively trying to unlearn, that burnout is somehow a badge of honor. And the belief that I'm trying to replace that lie with is this: burnout is not a requirement for real success. Just because something worked once or even twice or many, many times does not mean it's a sustainable model for my business, my body, or my brain moving into the future. Losing those words hurt. Losing momentum hurt. Watching January slip through my fingers a little more than I wanted it to hurt. But pushing myself harder while my brain is already in an unstable state, that would hurt even worse, both in the short term and the long term. So, this is the boundary I'm trying to set for myself. And yeah, it's kind of boring, but it's necessary. I do not need to make big creative decisions right now, at this moment. I do not need to force progress, despite whatever goals I had laid out for myself at the beginning of the quarter. And I absolutely do not need to be evaluating my talent, my career, or my worth as a human being while I'm dealing with depression adjacent side effects from my medications. I just need to take a big step back and let myself breathe until I'm better regulated and in a better position to be making decisions. There will be time for me to revisit the opening chapters and make them what I want them to be. There will be time to problem solve and revise and figure out what's actually not working and how to fix it. But I'm not doing that right now, at this moment. I'm not going to keep poking at shit that doesn't need to be touched while my brain is clearly not in a good place. That's not me being disciplined or committed. That's me spiraling and calling it work just for the sake of feeling productive, which is wholly unhealthy. What I actually need right now, like I said before, is to take a big step back and let myself fucking breathe. I need to give my nervous system some space to calm down, get better regulated, and get back to a place where I'm actually capable of making decisions that aren't driven by panic, frustration, or, oh my God, everything is on fire type energy. Because I know myself. If I keep pushing in this state, I won't make good decisions. I will make rash decisions, loud decisions, reactive ones, decisions that feel urgent in the moment and then feel embarrassing or exhausting to undo later when I'm calmer and more rational. And I don't need to keep doing that to myself. That's not a pattern that needs to continue in my life. And I have to somehow get my brain to believe that pausing does not mean I'm quitting. It doesn't mean I'm giving up. Slowing down doesn't mean I'm failing. And protecting my mental health is not the same thing as giving up on my goals, even when my brain is absolutely trying to convince me otherwise right now. It just means I'm choosing to step back now instead of being forced to stop later. Because I've done the forced stop version before, multiple times, and I don't need to repeat that particular lesson again just to prove I can survive it and be resilient. That's a thing that people always say about me. They're always impressed with how resilient I am and how I just keep going and bouncing back and all these things, and I'm fucking tired of being resilient. I'm tired of being recognized for being resilient. I want to start being recognized for taking better care of myself and prioritizing my mental health. Especially, I don't want to prove that I can survive this, and especially not when surviving it comes at the expense of my nervous system getting fucked up every single time I do this to myself. And honestly, this is a boundary that I should have learned how to set a long ass time ago. After I got off that call with Kim, I didn't try to push through. I didn't try to work on the chapter anymore, even though I really wanted to get chapter 2 done yesterday. I had draft chapter 2 written down in my HB90 planner, but I stopped. I gave myself a minute. I didn't force myself to just write something. I didn't sit there beating myself up for losing the rest of the day, which honestly, it was way late in the day and I probably didn't need to be doing anything else for the night anyway. Let's be real. I can call myself out on these things. I can be self-aware. Instead, I did something that sounds boring, but is actually the most useful thing I can do when I start feeling like I'm losing my grip a little. I looked at the data I've been tracking. This is exactly why I track my health the way I do. I use a chronic illness tracker and an MCAS symptom tracker. And for those of you who don't know what MCAS is, it's mast cell activation syndrome. Not because it's cute or aesthetic, although sometimes it is, because, I love my stickers and I like things being pretty and pleasant to look at. But because when something feels off, I need a way to step back and go, okay, what actually changed? Not what's wrong with me or why am I like this? Although, let's be real, I do ask those questions often. Just focusing on what changed. What did I do different? So I started going back through my notes, my journaling, my chronic illness tracker, my MCAS symptom tracker. I looked at medication timing, symptom timing, emotional shifts, when things started feeling harder, when the crying started, when my frustration tolerance went straight into the toilet. And once I had it all laid out like that, it clicked for me. Here's what I noticed. I had restarted my anti-anxiety medication after taking it inconsistently and missing some days. Missing a lot of days, probably, but you know what? We're not going to judge me here. Um, at the same time, I had also not been consistent with taking my mood stabilizer at nighttime, which is not great. I know, I'm aware this is fucked up. And I'm a grown ass person who should know how to take medicine by now, but I always end up fitting it in around everything else in my day. And as ADHD as I am, I just drop the fucking ball. And I do that a lot. But when those two things are out of sync, when you restart something that affects anxiety and emotional reactivity without having the stabilizing piece fully on board, your emotional regulation can go completely fucking sideways, which explains a lot. I wasn't suddenly bad at writing, even though I felt like I was. I wasn't suddenly incapable of handling frustration, although I've been a much bigger bitch than usual, let's be real. and I wasn't suddenly falling apart for no reason. My brain was just not getting consistent regulation from the medications that I've been given because I'm not taking them regularly and I'm not taking them on my schedule like I should. And on top of that, because apparently we weren't done stacking variables yet, I'd semi recently been prescribed Prozosine for PTSD related sleep issues. And Lake, my husband, was actually the one who put the pieces together and went, "Hey, didn't these breathing issues and heart palpitations you're having start around the same time you started taking that medication?" Which, yeah, they absolutely did. And no, breathing problems and heart palpitations are not side effects that you just like power your way through. If your body feels like it can't breathe properly, your nervous system is going to stay on high alert. Full stop. And when your nervous system is already dysregulated, your emotional resilience drops fast. So now we've got inconsistent anxiety meds, inconsistent mood stabilizer, a new medication that's messing with my body, ADHD making my med schedule chaotic as hell. Cool. Great. Love that for me. Once I saw that pattern, I did what I always do next. I checked it. I looked up reputable sources. I compared timelines. I made sure I wasn't just slapping an explanation on how I was feeling because it was convenient. And everything I found lined up. Emotional volatility, weepiness, low frustration tolerance, depression adjacent symptoms. Those are all very common when meds are taken inconsistently or restarted without a stable baseline, which meant this wasn't random. It wasn't me being dramatic. It wasn't me suddenly losing my ability to cope. It was a disrupted rhythm with my medications. And that is something that can be addressed, thank God. So, yes, I will be calling my prescriber immediately. That part is non negotiable. But until then, I don't need to blow my life up or implement some 5 step self optimization plan. What I need right now is steadiness. I need to pay attention instead of panic. I need to stop adding variables and I need to give myself explicit permission not to make big creative or life decisions right now. Not about this book, not about my timeline, not about my goals or my plans, not about my worth as a writer or as a human being. Because this is not a moment for bold moves right now. This is a moment for letting my nervous system settle the fuck down. And once I stopped asking, why the fuck am I crying? And started asking, okay, what's actually happening here? The panic eased up. Nothing in my life suddenly became a disaster, even though it felt like it did. Nothing about my career suddenly became fragile. I will be able to write again. It's going to be fine. I wasn't failing. I was dysregulated. And dysregulation is a state, it is not a verdict. Once that state passes, once you stop fighting it and start working with reality, it's a little bit easier to breathe. All right, to close out today's episode, I'm going to do an oracle card reading for the collective again. This is a past, present, future advice spread, so a 4 card spread. The deck I was drawn to today is Angel Signs, a divine guidance oracle by River Ether. As always, use your own discernment and decide what is meant for you and what is not. I am not here to override your tuition or to tell you what to think or believe. I'm just here to offer you another lens to look at things through. And, this is just for our collective. It's not going to fit with everybody. But if it does resonate with you, you belong here. So, for the past position, the card that came out is Boundary. Your energy is sacred, and it is your right to protect it by setting clear boundaries. Honor your energetic limits, for what is aligned with you will never require self sacrifice. And listen. I actually laughed when this card came out because apparently the theme of today's episode is me being gently but relentlessly confronted with my own shit. I have historically been terrible at boundaries, especially around work. I default to work first, push through, productivity equals worth kind of thinking. If I'm not doing something, producing something, moving something forward, making something, my brain immediately starts whispering that I'm failing and I am a bad person because I'm not doing something. And that is some shit I probably need to unpack with my therapist at some point. It's on the list. So seeing boundary in the past position actually makes a lot of sense in the context that I'm personally working from with this situation. This is the pattern I'm coming from. This is the context for literally everything I talked about earlier in this episode. And for the present position, we pulled negativity. Focusing on the negative may be causing you to attract more negativity. Redirect your focus toward what uplifts, for your emotions are powerful forces of creation. And I'm not taking this as a judgment. It's not scolding me, it's just accurate. When the book isn't clicking, my meds are being assholes, and my nervous system is already fried, my brain absolutely wants to fixate on everything that's wrong. That's just how it operates under stress, which is exactly why I set up a connection and gratitude planner for this year. Yes, it's functional, and yes, it helps regulate my brain, but I'm also not going to pretend that it isn't aesthetic as hell and that doesn't matter to me. I chose a beautiful, colorful planner for that on purpose. I made the spreads pretty on purpose. I like stickers, I like pins. I like when something feels good to open and interact with. That joy is not extra, it's part of the regulation. Every day, I'm intentionally writing down one moment of connection, like intentional present connection with my husband or my son or someone important in my life, or one thing I'm grateful for from that day. Not because I'm trying to manifest my way out of reality or anything like that, and not because I think being sad is a moral failing, because it's not. But because when my brain wants to spiral out of control, I want something concrete and visual to anchor to, something that I can open and say, these are all the good things that have happened to me so far this year. These are all the things that have made me feel connected to the people I love and have made me happy so far this year. That's however many days in we are right now. So, like 16 days into the year, I've got 16 things to be grateful for or happy about in that journal. And I think keeping that pattern up on a daily basis will help me get out of this negative headspace. So, yeah, this card makes complete sense to me too. And at the end of January, I will probably do a flip through of my January spreads for that planner, like each of my weekly spreads on the YouTube side of Chelsea's Chaos Chronicles, because this podcast and that channel are meant to talk to and interact with each other, like they're meant to support each other. And let me just say that this isn't about pretending I've got my shit together. It's about showing what I'm actually using to cope in real time. Now, moving on, for the future position, we have reflection. The energy you project into the world is mirrored back to you through the people and situations you attract. Shift your vibration to draw in what resonates with your highest self. I'm reading this less as do something and more as take stock. Pause, notice patterns, look at what's being reflected back to you before you decide what actually needs to change, which honestly lines up perfectly with what I've already decided I'm doing right now. Stabilizing first, then reassessing, then moving forward when my brain is in a good place for me to be able to do that. No rushing, no forcing clarity, no making decisions just to feel like I'm doing something. And finally, for the advice position, we pulled the enemy card. Be careful who you share your energy with, for you live in a world with both darkness and light. This one's not about paranoia, it's about discernment. Not everyone needs access to your inner world. Not everyone needs a front row seat to your process, and not everyone who listens is doing so with good intentions. Being selective with where you put your energy is not being dramatic, it's being realistic, especially when you're already depleted. That feels like practical advice to me, not fear-based advice. And when you see a card that says something like enemy on it, it doesn't have to necessarily mean a literal person. It can be a pattern in your life, a behavior, a bad habit. It can be a lot of different things. And it's not necessarily a person that's out to get you, so don't be like paranoid that it's something like that. It's just what the small print on the card says. Be careful who you share your energy with. And here's the part where I had to laugh at myself, you guys. This entire episode started with me asking, why the fuck am I crying? And it ends with a reading that opens with boundary in the past position. Because what did I decide last night? That I'm setting a boundary around my writing, that I'm not making big creative decisions while my brain is on strike because my meds are out of whack, that I'm not touching shit that doesn't need to be touched until I'm better regulated. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I started this episode asking, why the fuck am I crying? And I'm ending it realizing that the answer isn't actually that deep. My brain chemistry's off. My nervous system is pissed about it, and I don't need to make that mean anything bigger than it already is. I don't need to solve my whole life today. I don't need to fix the book today, and I definitely don't need to make big, sweeping decisions while my meds are out of whack and my brain is throwing a temper tantrum. What I do need to do is back the fuck up. Let myself breathe and not touch shit that doesn't need to be touched until I'm better regulated and thinking more clearly, which, funny enough, is literally the boundary that came up in the Oracle reading. So apparently, the message is loud and received. If you're listening to this and you're feeling emotionally off, extra reactive, or like everything suddenly feels heavier than it should, please know this. That doesn't automatically mean something is wrong with you or with your life. Sometimes it just means your nervous system needs a minute to reset, and taking that minute is not quitting. It's not failing. It's not you not being strong enough. It's you paying attention to what you actually need. So that's what I'm doing. I'm paying attention. I'm stabilizing, and I'll come back to the hard stuff when I'm actually in a position to handle it. That's all I've got for you guys today. I'll be back soon with more updates from my chaotic little corner of the world. I love you guys. Bye.